On this episode of Team Building Saves the World.
We hire and fire by our core values and so I think like you're laughing because I know it's true, right?
Yeah,
It happens. You hear that so often. That doesn't sound like something that you should be suggesting. What makes you think that that your idea is better than this company's idea? You should check your ego at the door. She has still to this day been my favorite boss of all time.
Nice.
Including myself, because I don't have a boss anymore, but she's a better boss than I am to my team probably.
Hello, team. It's me, your old friend Rich Rinnensland, host of Team Building Saves the World, the show where I speak to thought leaders from around the world discussing variable strategies and tools to help you and your team build a better work environment. And today, we're talking about the ever-elusive company core values with personalized career mentor Braxton Wood. But first, I have to share some love with my supporters at Team Bonding. If your team is ready to experience teamwork through the power of play, then visit teambonding.com to learn more. Now, team, join me in welcoming my guest, career development coach and master of all things about getting you a new job, Braxton Wood. Hello, Braxton!
Rich, how you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be with you. Thank you so much.
Well, let's start off like I usually do here. I want my team to know you a little bit better. So quick as you can, let's just talk about who you are, your background, and how you got into this particular field.
Okay, yeah, my 30-second elevator speech is, my name's Braxton Wood. I'm the founder of Professional Pivots. I love helping people find work they love and doing it on their own terms.
Nice.
And yeah, I've been doing it for, my business has been around for about 5 years. And the inspiration behind that, we can get into it if we want to, but I didn't go to school hardly at all. I haven't set foot in a classroom since I was 11 years old.
Okay.
So didn't graduate high school, didn't attend college. And in doing so, I took this journey where I really discovered how you can develop your own profession, develop your own skills on your own terms, in your own time, without waiting for the permission of an employer to give you that opportunity. And I found it tends to work better. So that's the inspiration behind what I do and kind of what defines Braxton to some extent.
Gotcha. So just to clarify with my team, you were homeschooled, is that correct?
I was homeschooled. I was a homeschool kid. Yep.
Okay. And what is the MAPT framework?
The MAPT framework is my framework for how I help people recognize how they can develop themselves professionally. So it can apply both at the 30,000 foot view to their professional development, to their career development, but also to the individual job hunt. And any occasion that they're on the job hunt, it can also apply that. So that's my framework that I've developed as a result of my experience coming from a homeschool kid, not going to school, but ending up at a 600 employee tech company that required a bachelor's degree. My MAP framework is kind of the product of all those experiences.
Excellent. Yeah, because I was reading your LinkedIn page, and they're just the fans that you have generated on that page. They scream your virtues, man. I mean, well done.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very blessed to have this experience, but also to be able to help people with kind of my perspective on things. I'm very, very fortunate.
Excellent. And of course, we're here today talking about company core values. Can you start off just, if you can, define for us what that even means?
Yeah. To me, I mean, the way I describe it is it's supposed to be like the umbrella from which a company is like what they're all about and what a company really focuses on. And like as a team, as a collective effort, that's what I view core values as.
Okay. When did this idea come about? Because I mean, we're talking about like in the late 80s, early 90s, still doing corporate work, mostly just as a secondary income for myself. But when did it start and what's the purpose of it? Why do we even have this conversation now?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can say when it started. I know when I was exposed to this whole concept of core values and how and it's become very much a buzzword in the market in the last 15, 20 years or so. Right. So hard for me to say when it came about, but my first exposure to it was really when I worked at that tech company, because that was something, you know how it is with Silicon Valley type companies and even tech companies outside that area. They're all about promoting their core values and being super vocal about it. So yeah, that was my initial exposure to it. And it's something that now, you know how it is like once you hear a concept one time, you hear it everywhere, you see it everywhere, you recognize it everywhere. That's kind of what's happened with me. Yeah. So I don't know. I've seen it become a big buzzword, I would say, in the last 15 to 20 years or so.
The funniest thing is I really only started hearing about it on this podcast, where especially when we're talking about millennials and the latest generation entering into the marketplace, that core values are something that they're looking at closely. And then my daughter goes off to high school, and the high school has core values that are posted everywhere. So why the importance of it? I mean, what are the companies trying to make happen by posting that these are the things we believe in and the edicts we follow every day?
Yeah, I think part of it is because it's kind of the bandwagon effect, first of all. It's like the first purpose is, well, I see other companies doing this, so I better do it too, right? But aside from that, I do think that core values have a purpose and they have a place. Most companies treat them as the model by which they base their decision making on, and how they, how many times do you hear, gurus standing up on a stage somewhere or something like that, and they're saying we hire and fire by our core values and so I think like you're laughing because I know it's true, right? It happens. You hear that so often, and so there's that. But I think the bigger picture of core values is, in addition to hiring and firing, how do we facilitate the culture in our company and make it a place that's desirable to work at?
So what are some beneficial core values? Like, are there companies out there that are saying our core values are the bottom line, or are they saying that our core values are, a friendly work environment and good employee mental health?
Yeah.
And where are we in between?
Yeah, it's hard for me to answer that question like in a direct way, because I think there's the intention behind core values, and then I think there's actually how they're lived. And I think that with a lot of companies, I almost, in my experience personally, before I started my business, all the companies I worked at, the behavior, the actions didn't actually reflect what the core values were. And that's something that I think is more common than most companies want to admit. Right. Okay. So, but when used properly, and like in terms of like what a core value is, I think it's the guidelines, right? Kind of like what I mentioned before, but like, what is some good core values? I think that a core value or a group of core values at an organization, it's used right when it's a focus on how the company serves their customers, serves their clients.
Okay.
In my opinion, that's a huge thing to watch for when considering working at a company, when considering if even if you own your own company, that's something to keep in mind. Because what I find is that many companies define their core values based on how the employee should serve the company or how someone at the company should work at the company. And I think that's a misstep, because as long as you define the core values based on internal behavior, based on how it can get abused, it can start a problem, right? But so good core values, in my opinion, should have a focus on how do we make sure the customer's taken care of? Because that's really what a business is designed to do. That's the purpose of a business, is to solve a problem for the customer. So why would your core values not reflect that?
Okay. So let's go back, because I loved how you said it, intention versus lived. Can you give me some examples of some things you've seen where the intention just didn't match up?
Oh, man. One of the biggest things, so I'm going to refer to the tech company again, because this is probably the most blatant example of like good core values and bad. And to be fair to them, like they had some good ones, they had some bad ones, but it was all, I define them as good or bad based on how well the company like executed on them and the team was able to live them. So the biggest example of one that was not maybe poorly thought out or poorly executed on, there was one of the most common ones that was invoked at this tech company of mine was check your ego at the door. And so the problem with that is like, yes, it's important to remain humble. It's important to be coachable and teachable and open to feedback, but that goes both ways. And how that value got twisted at the company is that if you were a subordinate or if you were the frontline worker, then you were the one that had to check your ego at the door, not the leadership, not the executive suite. So what would happen is as an example, let's say like this, I mean, this happened to me personally, is I went to my manager and then my director with a genuine idea about a process that would help us streamline how we serve our customers, that would make it less headaches for the team and as a whole, and make it for a better experience for the customers. So I ended up going to talk to my director about this. And as soon as I like pitched it to them and explained to them like this potential solution that was supposed to make everyone's lives better, the feedback I got from my director was, that doesn't sound like something that you should be suggesting. What makes you think that that your idea is better than this company's idea? You should check your ego at the door.
So check your ego at the door meant we don't want to hear your opinions.
Exactly.
Okay. What about good lived corporate values that you've heard of? Those intentions that are not only beneficial, but that they actually do live by. What have you seen about those?
I'm not sure if this is a core value in the sense that I've seen them slap it on their wall like so many companies do. Right. I love the example of like Zappos.com, because again, one of the things they're known for is like for customer service, amongst other things. They may not even be the cheapest option, but man, they're going to serve you if they can in any way possible. So like one of the things that Zappos.com made sure of and has been making sure of is like, we make sure the customer's taken care of. And so like I to the extent that they will like overnight a replacement product to you, or they free returns and all that type of stuff. Like all that I think is more encompassing. And Zappos.com has been praised for that level of service. When we used to talk about it for years, maybe not so much lately, but because the market's become much more democratized. But I've always clung to that example because I think it serves it well. Versus, I don't hear my former employer ending up in the news for any, you know what I mean, or in blogs because of any great core values that they've reflected on. So like that's a big one, I think, is Zappos, and just that level of reflecting on how the customer feels, what the experience is, and if they're being served well.
Okay. So as I was saying, I've been hearing for years, now the 5th season we're doing the podcast, and I've been hearing everybody saying that as these new people are entering the market, they're looking at these core values seriously, as in, do what I believe match what they believe? Is that even something that companies are considering nowadays? Or if you had a new employee coming onto the market and they come to you, for help with a resume or what have you, and they just are you telling them don't look at that? That's not always going to be what you think it's going to be, or do you recommend that yes, you should try to go for, or is there even a better way for this new employee to find out if what they're reading is true?
I think there's a great way. So it's funny. I just posted a video on my socials this morning talking about this. And so in terms of like, so again, keeping in mind that we want to recognize company core values and how they serve the customer. The reason for that is because if you base your decision-making on your company on the customer sentiment, then it's likely to be neutral and it's likely to be more truthful versus if it's more company internal centric, then that can be twisted and interpreted any way that someone wants to serve their own agenda. Okay. And that's what I found at the tech company as an example. So the thing to watch for is first, does the company's core values, if that's how you're going to judge a company, especially if they're very vocal about their core values, which some are, if you're going to judge them based on their core values, are their core values more centric on serving the customer, or is it more centric on how the company gets served as in and of itself? Gotcha. That's the first thing to watch for. So I think another thing is what is employee sentiment? So there's a bunch of resources out there where you can discover like what employees are saying about their company. Glassdoor.com is one. Sites like that. Even Indeed.com has an employer rating system. Nice. So sites like that, they have these core values slapped up on the wall. Go look at these sites and these resources and see if employee sentiment is reflecting the things they're saying. And I think that's a pretty good tell.
What's the purpose of just slapping them on the wall, though? I'm going to be honest with you, because it's part of it is maybe it's just that doubt that I have within me, that little cynicism that comes with age, where you look at this, the teamwork poster, the hang in there baby poster that's hanging on the wall. Is it just a method of control for the employee beneath the management, or is it an actual inspiration that they're trying to maintain and trying to reach? And how can we tell the difference, especially early on in the career?
Yeah, I think for the right company, it reinforces something, right? There's a human principle, like the human psychology suggests that any habit is built, any concept is better adopted through repetition, right?
Okay.
And so like there's a lot of things that happen even outside of the career space, even outside of that topic. In a general sense, humans tend to believe things when they're given initial evidence of something,
right?
And it's built upon, a foundation is built upon it, even if it's not factual or true. And anything that is presented as the truth that is the antithesis of it, some people tend to not sway their opinion or their views on it, right? So in that sense, I think core values can become a form of control, and that's what I've seen happen when it's done right. It can be a form of inspiration because I think it's so much easier to rally a team, rally an organization around, man, look at how we're helping our customers. Look at the successes our clients are having, instead of look at what the company's doing, right? And so I think that's where the line is drawn, is how much are we celebrating the company versus celebrating helping others?
I want to dig into that, especially Braxton, but I need to step away just for a brief second. Hope you don't mind. Speaking of teams, I want to tell everybody out there about a company I am very proud to be a part of, Team Bonding. Team Bonding was founded over 20 years ago with one simple question: how can employees have a great time while fostering strong, authentic bonds between people who work together? No matter where your company is located, Team Bonding offers powerful, engaging, custom team building events designed to get the best out of your team anywhere in the world. They've created a catalog of innovative events using the power of play as a learning tool and tapping into the correlation of work and play. So whether it's scavenger hunts to Jeopardy or so many more, the team bonding of activities, whether it's live, virtual, or hybrid, maximizes the impact of team building with an accent on fun. So visit teambonding.com to schedule your event now. Team Bonding, when you want seriously fun results. And speaking of seriously fun, we're having a seriously fun conversation with my guest, Braxton Woods, talking about that elusive company core values. Braxton, when I was living the corporate life, I managed to make myself up to middle manager. And one of the things my boss told me was that we were doing corporate security work. And he came in one day and he said, everybody looks miserable. You're an actor. Get them smiling. Teach them how it is that you have to actually, no matter what your day is like, put a smile on your face. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Whatever it happens to be. So I actually came up with this whole philosophy of customer service wherein we treat each other as well as we treat the customer. Look at the person you're sitting next to at a booth all day or standing by a door with all day long and treat them as well as you treat, if not better, everybody who's going to come across your path. I didn't realize what I had been doing was creating a company core value, but it was something that my company was actually nice enough to latch onto and keep pulling along. So let's look at this from a company perspective. How would you recommend to one of those managers out there that it is time to reevaluate, or even, God forbid, to start bringing in core values and living by them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is everyone's biased. And so you have to be willing to take an outside opinion first.
Okay.
So however you want to do that, you could do, people tend to be afraid of taking polls at work because they're just going to say something to protect themselves.
Sure.
So I don't even know if that's the best solution, but like you want to get feedback somehow. And so if you have a good rapport with your team, that probably means you're living, whether it's the company's core values to its best or your own, that's something to focus on first. So I think the first step is not even to start a conversation or do a poll or anything like that, but evaluate yourself. If you're really in a position where you're able to get that sentiment from your team, and if the answer to that is no, then you need to evaluate why that is and explore that. And so I really think that's the first step. Okay. And that's something that I coach my clients on all the time, that I think actually is a big struggle. No one stops to think about, well, how am I actually, intentionally serving my team, like in the way that I can define it with personal core values. I think, that added layer is like, well, I need a mode of operation to live by. So I need to make sure that I'm doing it to improve, if not maintain, a good morale. So that's the first step. So then once you're in a position that your team knows that you're on their side, you're in their corner, and you're in a position where they can trust that their feedback is safe. That's the point you got to get to.
Right.
So assuming that someone is there, I think it's easy to have a conversation at that point. I remember I had a lot of managers at the tech company I worked at, and there was a manager who I had who, when I first went to work for her, I thought she was incredibly intimidating. And I thought my first week with her, I thought that I would have preferred to be on anyone's team other than hers. But as I got to know her better, she was just kind of a no fuss, no fluff kind of woman, but she was very much like served her team. And she has still to this day been my favorite boss of all time, including myself, because I don't have a boss anymore, but she's a better boss than I am to my team probably. So like being able to reflect that, being able to just say things like it is and be like, and be honest and have integrity with it, and be it can be difficult to communicate that and give that confidence to someone that their feedback can be trusted with you. So there's no silver bullet answer on how to do that, but I think it's important to focus on that.
Well, what's your recommendation for that first step, the looking inward? Am I a part of this team? Am I living up to the core values that not only the company wants to see, but that I myself want to project?
Yeah. So I think you need a frame of reference, right? So whether it's the company's core values, again, assuming that you're trying to live them to your best, ask yourself if there's anything, like take inventory on your own behavior, on your own decisions, and ask yourself, okay, assuming these core values are good and they're intentional when used properly and lived properly, have I ever done anything that has violated those core values anyway, no matter how small it is? And take inventory on that, and then ask yourself, what was the judgment or the decision-making process to lead me to violating that core value? And you got to be really honest with yourself. You're not sitting down talking to a therapist or your spouse or something, or even your own manager. So it's easy to be honest yourself if you're willing to be objective. And I know that can be challenging, right? But it's important to do that, to sit down and take inventory of your choices, your decisions as it pertains to your own core values or your company's, and ask yourself, and then evaluate the decision-making process behind why those values were violated, and see if it's something that you can change, you can reflect on, that you can adjust. And I think most importantly is, how will your team that you're leading recognize that change is making? Do you share that with them openly? Is that something that you lead by example, just in the way you behave, in the decisions you make going forward? That would be, I think, a huge step to take, is be objective and take inventory.
Okay. Now let's look at it from the other end. How can I be sure that if I'm at the workplace and I'm doing my best, I'm trying to meet these goals, but the core values are either not being followed through on the management level, or it's just not tenable? How do I know, when do I know, I should ask, and how can I go about repairing the damage that is obviously going to be caused at this disparity?
The biggest issue that all my clients come to me for, and I've worked with some very accomplished people, vice presidents at publicly traded companies. I could list a few of them. And even people at that level, at that caliber, struggle with feeling fulfilled and engaged in their work. And so I think that in terms of answer to your question is like, the question, the conversation you have with yourself is, how much am I willing to risk or, execute on at the peril of my own profession, at the peril of my own standing at my company? So that's the first question you got to ask yourself. Okay. But for those, my point is for those that really want to feel engaged and really are willing to make an impact, I've seen some of these people, some of these incredible professionals kind of fall on their own sword for the sake of their team. I've seen people that have, so you got to ask yourself where on the spectrum you're willing to, possibly sacrifice yourself a little bit.
That's a great personal core value, though. You got to give them marks.
It is, right? I mean, if we're going to have there's no exceptions with your integrity and with how you view your core values, right? So if you're going to live your core values, or even your company's, when intentioned properly, then that's a conversation you have to have with yourself. I had a good friend that was a product manager at the tech company, and they were letting go someone on his team for purely arbitrary, superficial reasons, had nothing to do with performance or anything like that. He was the best person in that department. And my friend walked up to the director and he said, if you let him go, then you're going to say goodbye to me too, because this is not right.
Nice.
My friend lost his job over it, because that's what it was.
There's the gamble.
Exactly. But he was fine. He was fine with it. He was fine taking that risk because he decided in terms of his personal core values and seeing the core values at the company on the wall, recognizing they're being violated in this situation.
Yeah.
He said, if you got basically what he was really telling them is if you're going to live, if you're going to, what's the word? If you're going to like objectify or exploit these core values for this, just so you can fire this person, just because you don't like them personally or whatever, then that means you're not the kind of company I want to work for. So the ball's in your court. You're not going to lose one person. You're going to lose two over this if this is the decision you're going to make. And he was fine with it. So I think it's important to recognize like it's an uphill battle, and you wanting to make an impact can send a message. And when he did that, it did send a message, but it's going to be there's going to be a cost to it as well.
You're saying that the best kind of core values, at least the most honest kind of core values, are those that should be client based. How hard is it, I should say, nowadays for a person to actually go, I'm coming to work for somebody else, that my job is really centered upon the betterment of that, innocuous person that 90% of us won't even meet. That does seem to be a check your ego at the door kind of scenario. But that is what pretty much business is nowadays. I mean, how do we compensate that disparity?
The disparity between
a company trying to say, come and work for us. You're going to have a great situation. We have put so much thought into the care and well-being and safety of our employees. But by the way, your entire job is making sure that you're not happy over that person out there being happy.
Gotcha. Yep. I mean, I guess my knee-jerk response to that is, what's the alternative? I would much rather go work at a company and hear them say, this is how we value our customers. Here's how we treat our customers. Because in the short of it, look, they're making your paycheck. They're writing your paycheck, right? Yeah. So I'd much rather hear a company share those values with that angle than say, here's what's expected of you. Here's our core values about how you're supposed to serve us, and so on. Like, it just seems like a little bit more egocentric, which is ironic considering most companies have a core value about ego to some extent, right? Yeah. So I think that's, in terms of the disparity, there's ultimately a company can have core values that are very centric on how the company is served by their teams, and that can still be a good company to work at, right? I've just seen too many examples of companies that I've worked at, that friends have worked at, that clients have worked at, where those core values that were company centric got abused, got used as a weapon. And the common thread I saw was, it was always when it was a company centric core value. And so I asked myself, well, how would you avoid that? How could you potentially avoid that? Make it more about the customer, because that's what a business is there for anyway. Okay. So if you do that, and for the right people, I think that creates alignment for your teams and the people you hire as well, because good people are wanting to make an impact, wanting to be engaged, wanting to be fulfilled in what they're doing in their work. And is that not something that tends to be client centric as well? I used to work at a tech company where our whole, the product, the purpose was to help small businesses grow and succeed. Right. And so that is very much a customer centric value that is noble. Right. And me being the kind of person that was passionate about business, about entrepreneurship, I found alignment with that company for that reason. And so me personally, at an individual level, I made a lot of impact in individual businesses. I've worked with over 500 companies across 11 countries, partially as a result of working at that tech company. Okay. And so for me, I felt very engaged and very fulfilled because, again, I was focused on the customer, and making an impact in their business was huge for me. So I just think that's, in the short of it, like, in trying to navigate that disparity, I think you can err on the side of caution and being more customer centric in your core values. And you're, based on my observation, you're likely to be more successful in keeping the morale of your teams for that reason.
Okay. This has been going great. I'm getting the signal from my producer that we might want to start wrapping things up a little bit, because as I told you in the pre-interview, I can just talk about these topics forever. But let me ask you, when you have clients who come to you and they're trying to improve their careers, they're trying to take a more positive step forward, does this even come up? And if it does, what kind of core values do you recommend to them to look for?
Yeah, I think the core value conversation does come up all the time, especially with the nature of the client that I work with. A lot of the type of companies they want to work at are the type of companies that tend to be very vocal about their core values. So I tell them, like, I help them understand no company's perfect, but if you're going to spot certain things, like it really is fairly easy to say, are their core values more centric on the employee serving the company, or are they more centric on how the company serves the customer? And if it's the latter, then you're going to be, in my opinion, more likely to find a good fit with that company. But then it's easy to in terms of what you're looking for, their core values are probably plastered all over the walls, even plastered on the website somewhere. It's easy to go and do your homework on that. I always tell my clients personally, go to a site like glassdoor.com and see if those values are being reflected in their employee reviews on Glassdoor or not. And sometimes you got to be careful because with Glassdoor, like you don't want to necessarily believe all the 5-star reviews because companies tend to strong arm their people to go leave reviews. You don't want to believe the 1-star reviews either. Because that's just a disgruntled employee. So if you go read the 3-star reviews, they're probably the most accurate ones, and they're going to tell you the good and the bad. It's probably as neutrally as possible. So what do the 3-star reviews say? Look at those and see how they match up to the core values that you keep hearing about from this company.
Fantastic. My team out there, please give another big round of applause for Braxton Wood. Braxton, thank you so much for coming on. Can we please, before we get to some fun stuff here, I do want to ask, is there a way my team out there can reach out to you, a place they can find you or find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So anything, my socials, my email, I do a lot of like partnerships and things like that. All that information can be found on braxtonwood.vip. You go to braxtonwood.vip. Everything I do is found on that one page.
Excellent. And did you have some fun?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
I'm glad you did. And I hope it continues to be so because we're going to get into my speed round now.
Okay.
So I didn't actually explain this to you earlier, Braxton, and I want to now. This whole podcast actually started out as me talking to other team building facilitators. And as a method of kind of making up for all those people out there in the world that we forced to do games when they weren't ready to play games, I came up with this game. And all it is 60 seconds. I'm going to be playing some music. That just keeps me in track of how much time we have left. In that time, I'm going to ask you just a series of completely innocuous questions about you. It's a way for us to get to know you just a little bit better personally. The objective, if you're feeling up to it, is to try to just answer as quickly as you can. And if you feel competitive at all, we've hit 15 questions asked within 60 seconds. So you feeling good?
I can do it. Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to start playing some music. I will ask the first question. And whenever you're ready, here we go. What's your name?
Braxton Wood.
How many kids do you have?
3.
Which one's your favorite?
Oh boy, none. I love them all for different reasons.
Do you have any pets?
2. Well, a lot. I have a dog, a cat. The cat's my wife's, and then we have 10 chickens.
Nice. If you could ask any of your pets any questions and get an answer, what would that question be?
I'd ask my dog, why on earth is he so hyper?
He's a dog. That's just an easy one. I got you. Okay, what's one choice in your life you really regret?
Oh, I have always been interested in real estate investing, and I regret selling every house that I've owned.
Wow. What's the most courageous thing you've ever done?
Oh my gosh. I just got back from a pitch competition a few weeks ago, just outside of Kansas City. It was pretty fun.
Excellent. Who would you like to see play you in the movie of your life?
Oh man. I don't know. Man, let's say Bradley Cooper.
That's fine. Not a problem. You got 9, sir. A gentleman's 9, as we call it.
Love it.
Braxton, again, thank you so much for coming and playing with us today. Thank you for being a part of the show. It means the world to me that we get out there and we share all this great information. My team out there, if you are looking for the chance to actually increase your not only wealth, but also your standing and the better job that you think is out there for you, don't be afraid to reach out to my friend Braxton Wood.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, my team out there. That's it. We've wrapped up yet another episode of Team Building Saves the World. If you've enjoyed this show, whether new to the podcast or an old fan of the show, please be sure to share it with everyone you know. Whether they're a coworker, a friend, or family member, it just helps us to share all this vital information. You can find out all about us, including all past episodes, at teambonding.com/podcast. You can also find us wherever you find your favorite podcasts: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever you go, my friends, I will be there. And don't forget to look for all of us on the social medias at Team Bond Podcast. Leave us a message. Tell me whether you liked the show, whether you had a follow-up question you want to know about, if you didn't like the show, if you have a topic for the future you need to hear about. I want to hear from you. So, before we say farewell for this episode of Team Building Saves the World, please never forget, if you are within the sound of my voice, you're on my team now, and I am forever going to be on yours. So long, team. See you next time.
It's been said that you learn more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. So why not put your coworkers to play with the help of the team at Team Bonding? Team Bonding was founded over 20 years ago with one simple question: how can employees have a great time while fostering strong, authentic bonds between people who work together? Their catalog of innovative events includes scavenger hunts, Jeopardy, and much more. Each activity, whether live, virtual, or hybrid, maximizes the impact of team building with an accent on fun. Visit teambonding.com to schedule your event now. Team Bonding, when you want seriously fun results.